that vehicle is in front of you the entire time?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, yes.
We get to the house. It didn't look like it was busting at the seams with people, and there was maybe 1 or 2 cars in the driveway. And
at the beginning, it was only a car length and a half, and then probably at the end, by the time we left, it was about 3 car lengths.
Okay, fair enough. So at the end, it was as much as 20 to 50 feet ahead of you.
Give or take, yes.
Okay, so 50 feet, obviously further than the length of this courtroom.
Correct.
In fact, was it your testimony that back in May of 2022, much closer to the event in question, that you indicated under oath that y'all were actually talking for closer to 5 minutes?
The whole thing, probably, yeah.
You observed with reference to that?
I observed that there was a person inside the car with the interior light on.
And that would be sort of a dome light, is that right?
Correct, sir, yes.
could I have done something that knocked him out and in his drunkenness and in the cold didn't come to again?
They said that it appeared he did not suffer those injuries from getting hit by a car.
Correct. And conversely, the damage on the vehicle was not the result of hitting a human body.
It also contained in the report that you at least co-authored, there's an indication that Mr. O'Keefe's injuries, at least to his skull, the fracture to his skull, are consistent with him having been pushed or possibly been impacted by the subject, Alexis, and fallen backwards, striking his head. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, so that's another possibility. So if we're saying that there's enough force if you fall backwards to strike your head and cause that skull fracture, well, he could have slipped and struck his head. The car could have backed up and not known that he was there and nudged him and caused him to fall. I mean, any event that would cause him to fall backwards obviously would result in him striking his head. So there's numerous, almost infinite possibility of different scenarios that could result in that type of an event.
Yes, if the vehicle is striking the center of gravity of a pedestrian as opposed to just, for instance, a limb, yes, the center of gravity or the body will be accelerated up to that speed.
The car hits the person. First, the bumper contacts the leg, causing the pedestrian to be lifted upward and rotated toward the car, which will still be moving forwards. Typically, this results in the head hitting either the bonnet or windscreen of the car. During this part of the impact, the pedestrian is accelerated to the speed of the car. As the car, under brakes, comes to rest, the pedestrian continues on at the speed of impact before being thrown from the bonnet, where a second impact with the road occurs.
Was it that you determined where on the taillight assembly to aim?
So we looked at the fracture pattern, and what it appeared to be that it was emanating from basically where the clear portion meets the red cover. We kind of saw that the fracture pattern emanated from that, so that's where we targeted it.
Now, when you did this testing as far as the sort of breakage or the pieces that came off the taillight, is it fair to say that they were of sort of different shapes and sizes, the broken pieces?
Sure.
Consistent with the broken pieces that were found on the scene near Mr. O'Keefe's body?
Yes, I would say that's fair.
There's an indication that if either Mr. O'Keefe's arm or head had interacted with the taillight, there'd be some expectation that either blood or DNA would be contained on that taillight. Is that correct?
I believe, yes, that was stated in the report.
And at any point were you made aware that Mr. O'Keefe's DNA actually was recovered from that taillight assembly from the defendant's vehicle?
No, I was not.
As far as that, you're familiar with, there was a piece of a broken drinking glass that was recovered from the same area of where Mr. O'Keefe was found. Is that correct?
Amongst the fragments of the taillight, yes.
And are you familiar with Mr. O'Keefe's DNA being present on those pieces of the exterior of a broken drinking glass located near his body?
I don't believe so.
What is the one thing in this case you believe proves your innocence?
John's body, no bruise, not a bruise on his body, not a fracture below his head.
Did have some fractures, I believe, to the 4th and 5th ribs. I documented those as most likely due to resuscitation.
He testified that Mr. O'Keefe had multiple fractures to his skull, but that they seemed to be originating from a single point of impact on the back of his head. Is that correct?
It appeared so, yes.
In other words, it was an irregular laceration that resulted from some blunt force trauma.
Correct.
You described the open wound to the back of his head as a laceration, which is sort of a blunt force injury that's not the result of sharp force trauma. Is that right?
Yes.
And you'd agree that Mr. O'Keefe's head injury came from some sort of blow to the back of the head, whether it be an object or the ground. Is that right? Are you reasonably certain that all of his injuries were the result of a single impact to the back of the head?
It could be a single impact.
But it also could be multiple impacts, correct?
It could be, yes.
Because as you just testified, Mr. O'Keefe suffered multiple injuries to the front of his face as well.
Correct.
In other words, he could have suffered a trauma to the face and then fallen and sustained the injury to the back of the head, correct?
That is possible, yes.
The eyes were clear, yeah. The eyes themselves were clear, yeah.
Now, as far as the minor injuries that you were talking about, as far as the eyelid or the nose, as far as the minor lacerations you were talking about, there was no bruising around any of those lacerations, correct?
The eyelid laceration, don't forget, is in the same area where we have the other injury, and it's a little bit hard to figure out whether how much hemorrhage, how much of that black eye could even be from related to the laceration, because you've got two possible explanations for the black eyes. One is the skull fracture I've already mentioned, but that doesn't rule out his getting an impact as well on the front, but there's no way you can separate them.
He had a like a swollen black and blue right eye. I noticed a hematoma on his right eye.
And just to be clear for the record, so when you say hematoma, based on your training and experience, can you explain what your understanding of that term is to the jury?
Swelling and bruising.
It was right at the head. He was noted to have a hematoma on the right side of his face, just above his eye on his forehead.
He had a hematoma or a bruising. The right eye was very prominent.
And his right eye it looked like a golf ball. His left eye was fine. But the right eye looked like a golf ball. And she asked if I wanted to see him. So I did, because I figured it would be better than when I last saw him. Maybe he was cleaned up, but it was not. It was worse.
Sorry, man, but as far as say that it was worse, back into a room where John was, is that right?
Yes.
And what did you see?
He was in a neck brace, and both eyes were huge. Whereas when I found him, it was only one, but they were like black, almost like filled with, I don't know, blood or fluid. They were huge.
And the brain findings in particular that you made, were those consistent with the fall?
They can be, yes.
Can they also be consistent with being struck by a vehicle and then going to the ground?
Yes, they can be.
You testified a bit about the injuries that you observed on John O'Keefe when you first arrived at the scene, correct?
Yes.
You testified about the swollen eye?
Yes.
You testified that the injuries to his face were also the result of a blunt force trauma.
Correct.
So that's the laceration to the eye and the two abrasions that we see there on his nose.
Correct.
And you'd agree that those injuries don't just manifest out of nowhere, right?
Absolutely.
They have to originate from something.
Yes.